the podcast Wounded Hearts, Wounded Churches. We discuss a range of topics that include addictions, religious abuse, and recovery. This live platform offers meaningful questions and answers, a counseling continuum, and valuable feedback from professionals and others who have been through the process and are healed, forgiven, and reconciled. If they can achieve this, so can you. This program can be heard on iHeart, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Pandora, Apple Podcasts, and others. Make no mistake, this podcast sustains and implements three things: healing, forgiveness, and reconciliation within the Church of God. Thanks for listening.
Good day, friends. Good to see you tonight for the podcast, Wounded Hearts, Wounded Churches. And I wanted to do something different tonight. I want to introduce this special segment because it's dealing with some very touchy and emotional issues. And again, this podcast we have three main focuses. Number one, reconciliation, healing, and forgiveness within God's church. And of course, the program tonight with those same things. There's been some issues in the guy's home, with the wife and church, and with the bishop. So we want to talk about that tonight and how we can learn to be more effective in helping unity, helping healing and forgiveness for those who have been maybe forgotten about, maybe left the church, or whatever the case may be. We want to be an element of healing and forgiveness in that. It'll be two programs, Lord willing, to work with this segment. And you don't want to miss either of them, because the guy goes through a lot of emotional ups and downs with wife, with the bishop. And again, it's talking about those three areas that are so important to this podcast: reconciliation, healing, and forgiveness within God's church. So if you know someone who maybe left the church, maybe they're considering divorce, or minister's problem with the minister, this is the podcast for them to listen to. So give them a call, let them know that we are on the air with Wounded Hearts, Wounded Churches tonight. And we do thank you for being with us. May the Lord bless you. Good day, friends. Thank you tonight for coming into the program tonight, Wounded Hearts, Wounded Churches. We discuss the litany of topics on this podcast, and they can range from all types of abuse, religious hurts and wounds, but we look at it as a platform recovery. And this live platform offers counseling sessions, meaningful question and answers, and of course, a counseling continuum. Now, tonight, there'll be no live call in, but we do want to get your input if you wish to email us in. Our co-hosts include Miss Lolita, she's a personnel director, and Mrs. Tennille, our technical director. And we have a grand host of contributors and supporters, which include Raymond Edwards, business owner, Pastor Larry Brown, Elder Dale Rude, Thomas J. Russell. He begun the program called King Priest, which is a 501(c) program. Of course, Tabitha Ward, she's an accountant. Minister Randolph Hunter, Minister Samuel Cavan, Pastor Ricky Morris, and Sister Sandra Cavan, who is a mom and a wife in the church. And my name is Prince, a licensed counselor, founder of Antioch Youth Center, a 501(c) program, retired. Friends, I want to thank you for taking part in this venture thus far. We talk about the new clip we have out that is an introductory clip. You can forward that to other people and let you know what we have going on here. Because our technical director, Mrs. Tennille, we've expanded to Amazon Music, Pandora in Review, iHeart, Sitter, and other areas of platform. We're expanding. We do thank God for that. If you want one-on-one counseling, you can call our counseling line off program times, of course, and that's 478-283-9093 or 478-784-7600. You can also email us at reeeechone@aol.com. Friends, this program, we discuss some very sensitive topics, and tonight is definitely one of them. And it may elicit some listener and viewer discretion. But make no mistake, our main focus, our focal point, and our mantra is to support those who've been wounded, those who've been hurt, to let you know God can heal those hurts, heal those wounds, and begin that process of restoration. So, our three areas, of course, are restoration, healing, and forgiveness. So, tonight we have a very special guest, and I underline the word special. Uh, Glenn A. Williams is a speaker, a husband, and a very prolific author. We're happy to have him tonight, friends. He's wrote a riveting book called Betrayal in the Church, and it is an exciting read. I'm going to read the summary briefly. Glenn's marriage was about over, and his wife had an affair with his best friend and mentor, who happened to be a bishop over several churches. In this book, vividly communicates the agony and brokenness and discovery, adultery, and the long road to healing. Now, friends, you can purchase this exciting read. I found out today doing a study that it's at goodreads.com, arthurhouse.com, Alberus, Barnes& and Noble, Amazon, most anywhere. In fact, Glenn and I have the same publisher. I wrote 5 books. My last one, Reach One. Reach One, we have the same publisher. We have that in common. So, Mr. Williams, hello tonight, my friend. Glad to have you here. And if someone wants to contact you about your book, about your new program, tell us about those things, please.
Well, I would like to, first of all, I'm excited to be here. I think it's a topic that's long overdue and will always be a part of our history as a people, as mankind. And I would like to personally, me and my wife, sign copies of the book and send them to you.
Well,
and have your name, if I could get your name,
yes,
and personalize
yes,
it, because we do appreciate it.
yes. Well, this is going to be an excellent interview. We've been waiting for it for a couple of months now, and we're just excited to be here. Tell us about your new program that you and your staff have put together recently.
As it relates to the book and what we've been through, it's something that's been ongoing since, in the late 80s. And as far as ministry, there are so many people that have been involved in situations like this in the church, but the church doesn't talk necessarily about it. But my wife and myself as a ministry, we're helping people by our experience, by living it out transparently. And you say healed and hurt or being set free, they can be synonymous and they can have different aspects in terms of how you define the different words. But I believe that all of this is something that was supposed to happen on some level. And you talk about law and being healed and love and being healed, and sometimes they overlap. But love is the fulfillment of the law. And listening to what you're saying about being healed through the law, they're both the same. And to understand that that love that's in the law is what governs everything. And that's what our ministry is all about.
All right. I'm going to show you a curveball here. Williams, do you think God allows things to happen sometimes so we can exercise forgiveness and love?
Well, because God knows everything before it happens. Said before we were formed in our mother's womb, he knew us. He has a plan for us. We only know things as they happen right now. We don't know what's going to happen in the next minute, next hour, next year. But he already knows, and he has entrusted us with certain things because of the potential that he's put inside of us to
Right.
bless other people.
Right. Right. And situations that are painful brings that out. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow, we. Well, let's go into our questions tonight. Brother Glenn, what prompted you to write this book? It must have demanded great tenacity and courage to do that.
Had to. It wasn't. It wasn't even really an option at some point, uh, because we're so used to hiding what hurts us
Mm-hmm.
and hiding what makes us feel insecure is why we end up doing what we feel like we need to do. And at the time, I didn't have a life at that time. It's my I was I was just a shell of myself, and having to deal with some things that were going on and being healed through it through transparency, not by hiding behind it, was what I needed to do in writing the book. And as hearing other people having experience as well, it helped me to heal, but helped me to understand, um, continue to understand who I was in Christ. Because as a man, you just feel pretty deflated, insecure, responsible, irresponsible. It's a lot of negative things that goes on, but by writing and going through it, it really helped me on a whole lot of levels.
Any questions for our director?
Not at the moment, but I did want to make a reference to what you said in the book. I was briefing through it online, by the way, and you spoke about your father in the past and what he had done in the past and the difficulty that you had. No one asked questions. You had questions in your mind of things that happened. It was a picture that you had seen of this little girl, and you didn't know who she was, but no one asked questions. And I often think how many times that lack of communication can cause so much misinterpretation, and that especially within our communities, we don't talk about it. We don't share our feelings, emotions, questions, or concerns, and I think a lot of time that leads to a lot of damage and hurt.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Brother Glenn, these questions that I have, if they cause too much emotion, we can go to the next one, okay? I don't want you to be uncomfortable, but what you have to say is healing in it. And I want to try to bring that out for our listeners. How was the deception? Let me rephrase it. How long did it go on, the deception, the issues, before it was exposed?
4 to 4.5 years.
Okay, so 4.5 years of what's going on. Okay. How long were you married before the problems arose?
We married in 83. So thereabouts a couple of years after that.
Glenn, did you see any signs of the betrayal? I bring that up. In my counseling profession, I did a long-term volunteer with the suicide prevention people. And what I found out is that when people have major decisions, they leave signs, maybe a phone call, maybe this, maybe that. In those 4 years, do you see any signs of betrayal or adultery that was going on in the home or whatever?
Not really, because one, I wasn't looking for it. One, I wasn't expecting it. And but I did notice because I was on the pro tennis tour at the time, and sometimes off, coming back, and then having to leave. I questioned one time when we were at the airport, and I saw his car parked next to our car. I didn't think anything about it, but I thought it was strange, but I had absolutely no idea.
Tell me more about that moment. So you were at the port. I didn't know you were a professional tennis player. Wow, I didn't know that. So you were at the airport. Walk me through that one more time. But the feelings and what you saw or sensed or whatever, or how she reacted to what you said. I don't know.
There was there was minimal reaction. Um, I didn't understand it, but I didn't question it because our families were so close. And as a bishop, pastor, minister, mentor, I mean, when I was there, even before, even even before I did a lot of traveling, I mean, whatever needed to be done at the church, 5:30 prayer in the mornings every morning, opening it up, closing, you know, working the altar, baptizing, front row, tie, the whole bit, whatever it took. I mean, that's what I did. And our families were close. If you can imagine 5, 6 families knitted together in a state, we all knew each other that closely. So, I mean, if there was an issue or need, you would think that if there was a problem, someone would let somebody know, but there was no indication.
And so that you trusted him as a
Absolutely.
father figure, how long did you know him before the betrayal?
Almost almost all my life. I mean, I had a crush
Wow.
on his sister.
Wow. Wow.
We just went to church conventions together and we just had a great time. We just got to know each other so well. And everybody knows, everybody just kind of knows everybody. So it's not something that you would anticipate.
And I'm going to go quickly forward. For you to be talking about this and to still be serving God is a sign of the mercy and the love of God working in your life. It really
Amen.
is. So, friends, this is Wounded Hearts, Wounded Churches. And if you've been wounded tonight in the church, wherever, family, whatever, there is help for you. Mr. Glenn's going to tell you more about his story and how God brought him through all of that. And now he's serving God in a more miraculous way than he was before. So if you've been hurt, there is help. If you need forgiveness, there is help, reconciliation. So after that happened, was it difficult to trust ministers at large after the betrayal?
Well, after knowing how real it was, uh, for a minute, I didn't, I didn't have much of a life. You know, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and but God did tell me that if I didn't keep love in my house, that I would lose it, and I could feel the walls. The walls had spirits in my
Mm,
house,
yeah, yeah.
and without that, the existence of love and growing and becoming is not even possible.
You mentioned the reality of it. Do you think that you saw it but didn't want to see what you saw?
Mm.
Absolutely not. I mean, I knew that my wife was supposed to be who she was years. I mean, years before we got married. I knew that she was the one because I prayed about it. She was in Michigan, I was in Texas, and we met at a national convention in St. Louis, and we exchanged numbers. And her mom said, she didn't think she should come because nobody had ventured that far from home. I told her, I said, well, if you think it's not right, then I'll just tell her that's not the right thing to do. She called me back. She said, come and get her. She came and lived here 3 years here. And I knew that I didn't want her wasting my time and me wasting her time. I knew that she was the right one. It was no mistake. And that was the confusing part, is because I knew I asked God if this was the one and if it was right. And she worked 3 years on her own, got engaged, got married. I sung 2 songs at the wedding and played God Made Me for You and You for Me. And that was it.
So you
And
sung 2 songs at the.
yeah, played and sung.
I
Yeah.
think you got the
Wow.
record. I think you have the record on that one. Uh, did the betrayal bring in friends who knew about it but didn't want to talk about it? Family members or people?
There were people that knew, but I didn't. And that's the difficulty, because as we accept Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior of our life, that's the that's dropping the pebble in the pond. And from there, things just swell and get better and better. But when you don't drop it and you hold it and you try to live a life through Christ, holding the pebble, everything falls apart.
How early did those friends know? In the first year it happened, in the last couple of years, or when did they know, generally speaking?
Well, this is just what I heard. I knew other people. You know how everybody around you would be smiling with you, but then in actuality, some people do know, but no one's saying anything. There were people after I found out, after I confronted him, there were other people. And I was just the one in the room that possibly didn't know.
Wow. When you confronted him, walk me through that. Were y'all at the restaurant or in the church basement or in the parking lot on the phone? Walk me through that entire scenario.
Well, again, it was one of those mornings where I was going to prayer in the mornings to open up the church. And my wife knew that I was going to confront him that morning. And she had called him and told him that he needed to tell the truth. And I walked into his office. We sat and we talked. And I said, I knew that I know what you did. And he denied it 2 or 3 times. But God had already showed me that it was really between him and maybe one other person, but I knew that it was him. And then after denial, he said, yeah, it was one time it happened 5 or 6 or 8 years before, but that was it. And but I knew that wasn't the truth either, but God knew that was all that I could handle at the time.
Right.
Good point.
I understand that. Was it hard to go to church and hear preachers preach? Were you just done with the ministry, done with the preachers? Or how did you get past that hurdle of trusting ministers again?
Well, interestingly enough, after that meeting in his office, and he asked us to still stay in the church, I looked at him like he was crazy, because there's no way, after knowing what he had done. And when I left the meeting, I said I wouldn't, but I went up in the balcony and I sat behind the cameras. And the message that he preached everything that we talked about in the office. And when the sermon was over, the altar was jam-packed.
Wow.
I'm just taken aback. So the friends that knew, and I'm sure people would talk and spread it around to some extent. People will be people. Did he ever say, and just talking about general forgiveness, did he ever say in that meeting, Brother Glenn, I am sorry. Forgive
Never to this day.
me. So to this day, he's still not said,
Never.
I am sorry.
And that's the issue. I mean, if we're God's righteousness, Jesus' righteousness, and we've accepted what he's done for our wrong, then there's no need not to. We're developing. The Bible says all have sinned. All is an existence word, and acceptance means consent with I get it right. The word acceptance means consent to receive. But see, we're so good at giving. We got a PhD in giving, but we got a kindergarten education in receiving. If we can receive what he's done, then everything else is easy. But when we take it upon ourselves to do what only God can do, that puts us in the place that we're in right now.
So in our last couple of moments here, so although he did not ask for your forgiveness, you decided to forgive him?
I had to, because of what Jesus did for me. He got to showing me some things in my own life that only he could bring deliverance and healing from in my life.
Mm.
And it really broke me down. I mean, we can't spend time or allow the enemy to occupy time in our mind, and unforgiveness is a prison that you'll never get out of. But once I saw and could sense the presence of God and all the things that he was doing, he told me, I mean, if I wanted to leave, stay, or whatever I wanted to do, he was never going to leave me, but that I needed to remember. And once he started to show me some things that he had brought me through, then that was the beginning of saying it didn't even have anything to do with him. It had everything to do with me and my relationship with Christ.
Any questions from our director?
Not at the moment, no, sir.
All right. So he did not ask for forgiveness. And Brother Williams, so what you're saying, forgiveness is real, isn't it? We can talk
Absolutely.
it and say it, but it's more than a word, isn't it?
I can't even explain it. I mean, you can't even begin to do what God has called you to do if you don't forgive folks. The bitterness and the anger and the emotions are just going to completely take over your life.
Wow. Friends, we're going to ask Brother Glenn to come back next week. Our time is just about gone, but this is the podcast, Wounded Hearts, Wounded Churches. And if you're hurting this evening, stay tuned to our next broadcast, 7 p.m. next Thursday. We're going to continue on this juncture of forgiveness and how it's so overlooked, but yet it's an important part of the situation of being saved. You've been hurt, devastated. Well, God has a healing for you, and you are not forgotten. This podcast is about healing, reconciliation, and forgiveness. So, Brother Glenn, thanks again. Stay tuned. We're going to do another taping tonight. Thank you for our directors who helped us out so much. May the Lord bless you. Amen.
Amen.